My guest for today is renowned Cebuano figure, Mimo Osmeña. We get into a candid discussion, discussing anything under the sun. Mimo, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's quite fun because I like to talk.
Yeah, so looking forward to many insights. I hope you take something from our talk today. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, Sir Mimo.
Good
It's
afternoon.
a pleasure to meet you. Actually, my first time meeting you, so it's an honor. So I just wanted to strike up a conversation with you on various issues. First of all, how are you doing? Any new projects? I know you opened Tops recently. Very nice place. And what's
Um,
new with you?
well, my activities are quite expansive. The TOPS is a joint venture with Fifth Avenue, and in fact, that the commercial area now is only phase one. There's going to be an additional commercial area and residential.
Mm.
So the idea is to have condominiums that have a 360-degree view. So like doesn't matter what floor you're in, it's like a penthouse because the elevation is already 2,000 feet above sea level. Um, Target is within the next 3 to 4 years to have that completed. So
So,
ongoing.
so you're also planning commercial, residential.
Yeah, it's an actual joint venture. So they're the ones taking the lead. There's a professional group that's doing the design, and then of course contractors are external. So it was just initial concept, and then with the joint venture partner who's taking the lead in this particular activity because we have quite a number of family properties that we are also developing.
Mm. What made you decide to ultimately renovate Tops? Because it's been that way for the last 20 years, right? Like more of a
Actually,
secluded environment,
yeah,
and
it was more secluded.
like a
It
date
was
area at
yeah,
late at night.
that was the concept of my dad and the late Governor Lito Osmeña passed away during the pandemic, COVID, together with my mom. They were 11 days apart. And, over the years, we were trying to convince him that we should upscale it and change it. But, at his age, he didn't want to deal with the issues. He says, just wait, just do it later on.
Mm.
So, in fact, we started discussing the joint venture already while he was still alive. And in fact, he was building his new house because his last house was the house right in front of the Tops. As you look down, you'll see a roof there. That was his house, which is going to be converted, I believe, into administrative offices for the entire development. And he started building his new house, which he was not able to complete. And right at the beginning, where you turn as you enter the road, Tops Lookout Road, it's the first building on the right side, which we converted into our office right now. That's an office for several other ventures, including Skyline Gardens, which is right there in the beginning.
Skyline, that whole scope there
Yeah,
is under your family.
yes. So,
Actually, my dad is is there in
oh,
Skyline.
so
He passed last year, so we were able to secure a spot.
yeah, so
But
they're neighbors now with my dad. I remember when we started that project in 2003. It used to be his house before. His house, there was a dome. I think you're too young to remember the silver dome. Everybody in Cebu referred to it as the dome or the egg house that was on top of the mountain. It was painted silver, and it was a bamboo and stone structure. There was there was no steel, and of course, over the years, eventually the bamboo started to rot, and he decided he wanted to change the posts to steel. They started cutting the post. What do you think happens when you cut the post? It fell. So it was not because of landslide or anything. It's because they cut the post. So the house fell, and he decided to build in front of the Tops. And so that was bare. And I suggested to him, I said, why don't we do condos? He says, condos? What kind of condos are you talking about? I said, condos where you don't need, water, you don't need. He said, well, what kind of condo is that? I said, well, you check in, you don't check out. I said, Columbari. He said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So he designed the tower itself and the structure. So it's quite unique, and it's been there for 20 years, but we did not actively market it at that time, and it's only now that I'm putting a team together to do sales. So it's only I think about 25% was sold initially, and so now we're targeting to increase the sales there and expand the business into other areas. We've already started developing a memorial park in San Isidro, Leyte, because we have properties there, and the cemetery was already starting to encroach into our property. So I said it makes sense to just convert it into a memorial park. We do have other properties in other locations, and so I'm facing it, and I'm basically doing it for the next generation, for my kids to have something that they can develop and grow Skyline as a business. It's one of our real estate properties.
But yeah, Skyline was very impressive. Ultimately, we picked that one for my dad. Well, personally, because my dad loved skyscrapers or views, so it was really
the location,
perfect for him.
The location, it's like being in Tops itself, no? And
Yes.
temperature-wise, and in fact, what I've done is we're adding something new, which you might be interested in. We are adding a product we call Lifestar. So right after the name of the person, there's going to be a QR code. And there will be a local area network that you link up to, and when you put your camera on the QR code, it will play the life story of the person. So you can prepare, and there's no limit, because since we're not on the internet, we're not hosting it in the cloud to avoid also people modifying it. So it's hosted in the server in the office, which is right across the street. So there's no limit. I mean, if you want to do a terabyte of videos.
Whose idea was that?
Mine.
And that's not done yet among the
and then
others.
I found out recently it's also being done, but not yet here in the Philippines. So it will be unique. And the term we're calling is a living memorial.
Yeah.
So the software is done. We're just looking for. We had to order laser etchers to be able to etch the QR code in metal. We're still deciding whether we use metal or polyethylene or something, because those materials, polyethylene or plastic, will last much longer than metal. And if you have the engraved QR code, then that's fine. As you also know, Skyline has no maintenance dues. So there's a perpetual fund run by our foundation that we set up also in 2003 that maintains all our developments under Skyline will be maintained by that foundation.
Okay. Sometimes I just go there to unwind and reflect, because it's a very peaceful scenario.
I mean, if you think about it, if you look at the big picture of life, our time here on Earth is very limited.
Yeah.
And after a few decades, people tend to forget. Majority of people below the age of 40, I guess, don't remember what my dad did when he was governor here in Cebu. They don't realize that Ayala was his project, IT Park was his project. The location we are in now was a reclamation project that he did as well. The second Mactan Bridge, the Trans-Central Highway. I mean, people forget. And if you even go beyond that, if you go a couple of 100 years, I mean, how many of your ancestors do you remember from 200 years ago? You probably don't know their names. And in the case of my family, we're just one of the few lucky families who have quite a history. So we still know many of our ancestors 200 years ago, even more. Severino, Osmeña was 1700s, so and in Skyline, if you saw, we have a generations column. We've maintained one wall just for the family. So it starts out with Severino and his wife, his second wife actually, who are the parents of Juana Osmeña, who's the mother of Don Serio, the president. Father,
Yeah.
my grandfather was Dr. Emilio, and then my parents, and then me, and then the next generation.
I
That's
came
how-
across that.
yeah,
I wanted a spot there because it was the best, but they said it was all
it was
taken
taken because
for the family.
the family, yeah, they
But that was
reserved
the
it for them.
best spot.
It's the closest to the driveway. So I guess for us, it's not yet a problem to walk around. But when you have people in their 80s who come visit, like my auntie Annabella Boitis, she's already 88, I think. She's turning 88. You know, she might have difficulty. When Tito Sani was still alive, he'd go there in a wheelchair, so they want to visit somewhere closer. And that's how it came about. That's how, you know, Dad said, this is going to be my permanent residence, so I want to make sure that it's nice.
Okay. Speaking of your dad, I always hear from my parents' generation that he was a visionary. He was responsible for the economic progress of Cebu. And as you mentioned, Cebu Business Park, IT Park. What was his legacy ultimately?
Well, you know, to be a visionary, you've got to look at things from a broader perspective, which is why I mentioned, you know, let's look at our lifespans are so short. And sometimes people do not think beyond their own lifespan. And their focus is what they can achieve within their own lifetime. And growing up, being from a family, I said, who are multi-generational, we always think of many, many years in the past. We look at history for the last several thousand years, I mean, global history, which also makes us reflect on the future. 1,000 years from now, how many of us will be remembered? I mean, who do you remember? There's probably only a few names of people that you learn in school from 1,000 years ago. And genetically speaking, their descendants, I think after 200 years, you only have like 0.02% of any of your ancestors. You know, the genes change over time. So we have this, I guess, innate position to think of ourselves as immortal, you know, and the fact is we are not. And you know, as far as what he did for Cebu, that was for the Cebuanos. In fact, it was the Cebuanos who were responsible for the boom. He just encouraged them and created the perception, because he said perception is self-fulfilling. So that is why, as far as what we look at, we don't look at what the benefit is, what legacy is going to be, because people won't remember that after a couple of generations, you know, 2-3 generations from now, no one will really remember much about the previous generations. So the action that we take now, the planning that we do for future generations, we don't expect to benefit from it, because it's not, I mean, the activity itself of doing something is because we think it is right, not because there is some reward that comes with it.
But I also see it's really paying off now, all those initiatives, IT Park,
Yes, and
Maria
then,
Luisa.
yeah,
Also.
Maria Luisa is my grandmother, who never saw Maria Luisa because she died before the development of Maria Luisa started.
This
In
was
fact,
60s?
she died before I was born. She died in 1961, or is it 62? I think 62. She died in 62. And Maria Luisa started in 1968, right after my brother was born. So it's been around. It's completely sold out. So people say, you guys own Maria Luisa? No, we developed it and we used to own it and sold it out. So it's completely sold out. Any new sales are resale already. You know, and we don't live there. I don't live there anymore. My family, we live in Tops. Okay. The Top.
But presently, we also see a lot of infrastructure issues, road issues with Cebu. How do we resolve that, given we still have very narrow roads? It's very tight. It's hard to get around.
Yeah, there are two approaches to use. One is a knee-jerk approach, which is a reactive approach where You look at the situation, you analyze it. Why is there traffic? It's because there are more cars. So people think about widening the roads, making bigger roads, adding public transportation. I mean, those are the immediate solutions. But if you look at it on a long scale basis, the real reason why we have all those problems in Cebu is because population. And our system is encouraging more investment into the population centers like Cebu City, and any major city in the country will slowly continue to grow in population because people look for jobs inside. The long-term solution for that is, well, this is a little bit political, but is the, I don't know if you've heard of PROMDI, which is the Progressive Movement for the Devolution of Initiatives. The idea is that we need to devolve, to spread out the development, encourage people to set up outside of Metro Cebu. That way you decongest the urban centers, and that reduces the problems. Because if you start developing the west coast of Cebu and start building new cities over there, new investment centers where people will come in, create new jobs, then those people who are from the provinces, who live in the city, will move back into their provinces. It will cause new problems where you'll have a shortage of workers, but that forces wages to go up. I mean, people say, what's the solution to low wages? Well, it's supply and demand. So many people are looking for jobs. There are no jobs, so they pay them as little as possible. And so we have minimum wage to protect the workers, but they will always remain at the bottom. I mean, unless they improve their skills and there's a higher demand for that skill set, then companies pay more. I mean, if I start looking for employees and I can't find employees, the only way I can get employees is to poach from other companies. So I offer more, better benefits, more salary. And that's how you drive income up. And those who want to move back to their provinces, move back into the cities that are outside of the metro areas, land is cheaper, so houses are cheaper, rent is cheaper, infrastructure, the basic necessities like water is more available because there's no shortage. Garbage is another major issue. And so we've got to do a long-term plan, and we need to devolve and push development outside of the metro areas. And that way you would hopefully reduce the population, and that will solve many of the problems that you mentioned.
Because I noticed the main city, it's really decongested. So I think a lot of development also in the south, SRP and further.
But that is what I call as a result of the organic growth. In other words, it's already full here. So they start moving south, they start moving north, but it's the metro area is still congested because they're moving only naturally. Whereas if you say, let's develop Medellin, let's develop Santander. Then you start then people here will find opportunity there. Then you reduce the population base by moving this. If we wait until the population grows so big before we start moving out, then the problems will remain. So that's short-term and long-term. Short-term, there are many solutions. They're trying this bus rapid transit. I was proposing cable car system because it's the cheapest. It's only 5% of the cost of a train to do cable cars. Maybe that's why they don't want to do it. It's too cheap.
What about subway or?
It's too expensive.
Too expensive.
Yeah. I'm sure you've tried subways in other countries.
Yeah,
I mean,
course.
you go
Hong Kong.
from Hong Kong to the city, you pay 100 Hong Kong dollars or 120 Hong Kong dollars. That's 700 pesos. I mean, how many people do you know in Cebu who can commute paying 700 pesos? I mean, minimum wage is only 500, right? So how will they pay 700? One way 700. Well, I guess, whereas cable cars, when we analyzed it, it would have been 12 pesos. So it's more affordable, 12 pesos for the fare. It's being used in many countries now in South America as public transport. So that is more viable. And then you don't have to, one of the problems is traffic because there are more cars than there are roads. So if we do anything having to do with breaking the roads, you're going to create more traffic while you're trying to build the infrastructure to support traffic. So let's say we want to do elevated highways, we have to have construction, they're going to close the lanes, it's going to create more traffic. Whereas a cable car just needs a small footprint for the post in the side, doesn't affect traffic. And when you finish the post, you can install the post in the middle of the night and then string the cables, and then you don't even have to worry about right away because it's above. No? So yeah, that's one possible. But those are short-term solutions or medium-term solutions. You could probably get them done in a couple of years. But long-term really is to decongest the metro areas.
What about in terms of the economy? How do you foresee Cebu in the next 5-10 years?
Well, the numbers look pretty good. It's continuing to grow. And again, because of that, it's creating the secondary problems. I think the country as a whole, our current growth rate is still okay. We have to be creative with what type of businesses we get into to be able to compete globally. We have certain abilities that have been recognized in other countries, like IT, for instance. And so there are a lot of BPOs. And then what I see happening is those BPOs are middle-level type of positions. Then they're going to go into higher skills. So you could have engineering work, architectural work, things that could be done online where they could hire local engineers, local architects to design certain documents and just send that through the internet. So that's another possibility. So yeah, I think Cebu will continue to grow. And when you have that population base earning better income, then you have, there's a chain reaction. They will need residences, they will need food, and so more businesses to supply their needs would continue to grow. And if we encourage development outside of Metro Cebu and make sure that the infrastructure is in place, then I can see Cebu continue to rapidly grow.
When do you think Cebu can reach Manila level in terms of the money flowing in and out?
I'll give you an example. It's like, when are you going to reach my age? By the time you reach my age, I'm going to be much older. So it's a chase, right?
Yeah.
So as Metro Manila continues to...
They're way ahead.
They're way ahead. We're going to have to continue to chase unless maybe we have a different system of government. Let's say we do the federal system where each province becomes independent of each other, and so they have the ability to grow it. Then you can accelerate it much faster. And with the proper leadership, then you can have an economy that would exponentially accelerate and then allow Cebu to almost become like another country because it's a federal state. And that's probably the only way where you would, start coming close to Metro Manila. But they're just so way ahead. Their population is 20 million, and here we're 3 million. And so 20 million translates to, bigger numbers no matter what. But if you look at the per capita income, I think Cebu is double that of Metro Manila on the average. So, when you ask a question, when will we be as big as Metro Manila? A simple answer could be when we reach 20 million. Maybe there'll be 30 million. But if you say when we'll be as rich as the people in Manila, if our per capita is double, we're richer than them already. We're double already, right? So depends, I guess, on how you qualify your question.
Yeah. Yes.
And do you want to be there? It's like you've been to the new development at top. People like it because it looks very modern, very commercial. But some people say we like the old top, which was more quaint, more dark. So that's something I like to, instill in people, is you have to think about what you want in life. I mean, I can teach you certain strategies to use for your business and to use for your growth, but then I say always, where do you want to be at the end? Do you want to work your whole life and then at the end you realize, okay, I've finished, I made all this money, I'm wealthy, and what? You can't even travel anymore because you're in a wheelchair, and so you can't use the money you made. Was that your ultimate goal? So we have to look internally to see what's our objective in life. And I ask a lot of people that, and sometimes they say, oh, I want to be successful. Well, define what you mean by successful. I mean, do you want to be a billionaire? And then, but it comes with its own set of problems and sets of issues. And that's why in some philosophies, people become monks and they just give up everything physically and then focus on something on their inner self. So that's a topic that's, again, very philosophical.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that you need to find yourself internally, find out what your real goal is. Do you want Cebu to become big, or do you want it to be a little bit more relaxed? I mean, the reason why I decided to move back to Cebu after studying abroad and living in Manila for a while is because lifestyle here is so much more comfortable.
Laid back.
Yeah.
You get a
So
balance.
yeah, but Cebu now is not what it was 20 years ago. Just like when I used to visit Dumaguete and Bohol and other places, it used to be so laid back. Say, oh, this is what Cebu used to be like. Now it's not the kind of lifestyle. What I did is I moved up to the mountains. So I Tagabukid,
Peaceful
it's
life.
more peaceful. I don't have to deal with the traffic. I just live at home. But at the moment I have to come down to the city, I have to deal with everything else. So that becomes a question again of personal choice.
Okay, going back to tops, how much was spent overall for the project?
They didn't mention the amounts. I have a guesstimate, but
Okay, since we delved a bit into philosophy, what is your outlook in life personally? What's your philosophy, or maybe a life motto you go by? What do you think is the purpose of why we're here and what we can do?
that's how do I say it? How do I explain it in such a way that people would understand? Because when you discuss spirituality, you cannot use physical terms because something physical is not spiritual. So maybe we leave out the spirituality. I believe in the philosophy of, I guess, a balance, more like the philosophical sense of Taoism rather than the religion, not the religion, but the philosophy about doing things in balance. Not extreme. It's the same way with maintaining our health. Everything's in balance. You don't say no to anything, but you've got to balance it. You can't be on the extremes. You're allowed yourself to eat lechon, but not every day.
Not too much.
So it's a question of balance. I believe in compassion. Other people, and my dad used to say that's one of my negative traits is I'm too much of a Santa Claus.
Altruistic or
generous, helping, too generous, and to a fault sometimes, to a fault. I don't believe in leaving a legacy for my sake. I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in having my name retained. I believe in doing things for future generations to minimize suffering as far as life is concerned. Is full of sufferings, although 90% we create ourselves. So I try to learn to, it took many, many years, but learn to let go of things that are really not important to avoid. So I pretty much live a less stressful life. When I realized those things and started living that type of philosophy. So that's why I do a lot of these programs that I do, radio shows, which is called Lamdag, for meaning enlightenment. It's not just answering questions or telling people what, but explaining to them to the point that they can understand. So with better understanding, we can make a better decision as to what it is we want to achieve in life. I don't have personal goals or personal targets for myself. I do have goals and targets for everybody else, how to assist, following the philosophy of teaching a man to fish rather than giving him a fish.
Confucius.
Yeah, so you say I've studied most of those philosophies, almost all. Hinduism, Taoism, Confucianism,
there's value
Islam,
in
Christianity.
in most of it that we apply.
The philosophy, not the religion itself.
Okay, what about new projects or business ventures that you're planning?
Well,
Any updates there? Aside from Tops,
yeah,
of
well,
course, that's
Tops
the
is already,
latest
it's
thing.
ongoing.
Yeah.
Then Skyline, I'm planning to grow Skyline and start training my children to take over the company and how to continue grow. So lead them more from a mentor type of a program. We do have an island in the north called Carnasa. We've already had Palafax do a master plan, so that's also on the works. Um, that's basically it. I'm exploring a couple other areas. I started going. Well, my future wife and I were discussing. We set up a food business. If you go to Tops, there's Mimo's Grill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I came
So
across that.
again, that one was a business experiment where I kind of mentored her into setting up a business based on formal strategy and process, and it seemed to have worked. And so our plan is to start expanding and opening up branches, initially in Cebu and then expanding. Again, it's more of a, for me at least, it's an experiment.
How many branches of that presently?
Well, right now we had one. We had two branches, but then because of the pandemic, we had to shut one down. So I said, you need to just focus on that one branch. I mean, we had to move several times. We were in Tops before, the old Tops, then we had to move to a second temporary location. And so we just moved to the new Tops. So it's been there only for a few months. So we're in the process now of formalizing the operational procedures. You have a commissary where you prepare the food, so that has to be also proceduralized. So you have a formal process in place so that when you open branches, it's very easy to replicate the procedure. And everything is organized in such a way that the function becomes more convenient rather than just doing mom and pop operations. So, I mean, it's so much work and so much formal process for such a small business. But I said, well, because you want it that way, so that when you grow it, it's very easy.
Quality and it's efficient.
Yeah, efficient. Yeah.
Okay. How's the Osmeña clan? I know you come from an influential political family over the past decades. It's a very known family name in Cebu.
Well, you have to consider the fact that we are probably, if not the oldest political family in the Philippines.
Way back, right?
1700s. So more than 200 years. I mean, the most famous obviously was President Osmeña. He's in the 50 peso bill, so most people know him. They don't know about his mother's history and his mother's family. They don't know about, because we went through the Second World War during the time of his presidency, and so many of the younger generations did not see any more things or didn't hear much of the things that happened before that. Like, very few people know that Sergio Osmeña's, I would say, his uncle, is it his uncle? It was Juana's, I think it was Juana's brother, Guillermo Osmeña, who was the lawyer for the Parian Church in Cebu. He defended the Parian Church against the Manila Church. They lost. And then he was exiled to Manila. He became a professor in Santo Tomas, and he was the professor of Andres Bonifacio. So actually, if you Google Guillermo Osmeña as a professor of Andres Bonifacio, and what I heard, and this is all hearsay because it's not in the history books, it was told to us, was that they were planning the revolution already then. Lolo Sergio was supposed to join them, and they told him, no, you wait after the revolution, then you come in. That's why Sergio Osmeña joined politics after the revolution. But so Guillermo already started that, and Severino was way before that, and in fact, our last name used to be Agaton, and the Spanish required people to change their last names to a Spanish name. So he picked Osmeña, even though there is no Osmeña. It just sounded Spanish. So there are no Osmeñas in Spain who are not relatives. And so if you talk about how big the family is, I mean, Sergio would be my great grandfather, Juana's my great great grandmother, Severino would be my great great great. Imagine the family tree. Dad alone, children of Don Sergio, there were 32 first cousins. 32. I think there were 32 legitimate first cousins. So I don't know, probably thousands. Thousands.
Yeah.
I still keep meeting people who claim they're relatives, and so I'm trying to trace, like, well, whose son are you? Who's your grandfather? I'm like, well, I know all Lolo Serio's children. Oh my God, it goes up one generation, and then how we married into all the different families in Cebu. You look at the family tree, it's like, oh, they're my relative, they're my relative, they're my relative. Oh my God, everybody's a relative. And only last year, they did a DNA test to find out who the real father of Don Sergio was, because they never knew. And all this time, they thought that we were relatives of the Go family, but the DNA test results showed that we were Sanson, Antonio Sanson. So all of a sudden, it's like I had friends, oh, we're related, so Gao.
New
No, you're my
discovery.
tito. No, no, no. If you look at Jay, you're my tito. So
just very recently.
yeah, just very
New
recently. So I
discovery.
just found out so many people in Cebu who are my relatives because of that. It's like it doubled the amount of relatives that I have here in Cebu.
Okay. But given you're into politics, the family, you have any plans of seeking
Well,
office or
I was
or a
considering,
national
but
position, perhaps maybe
I'm
down the road?
considering it, and it depends now on decisions on COMELEC. Again, decisions are all made in Metro Manila, no? In Manila. I'm the chairman of one of the national political parties, which is PROMNI. That's the party that Manny Pacquiao used when he ran for president, because he and my dad discussed it, and he needed a vehicle, and so we let him use it. I was supposed to run that time, but because of the passing of both my parents, I had to handle the estate, and that took a long time. I was considering now, but I'm still waiting for COMELEC's decision as to, what the status is of the party and what we can do. And then there's also a lot of local politics, and so people are saying, since I'm registered in Cebu City, I cannot run outside of Cebu City. And it's too early for me to run for Senate because I'm unknown. I mean, although the last name has equity, my first name is still unknown. So I need to start establishing a network, and that's what we're doing. As far as local politics is concerned, I've kind of stepped back because I'm like, oh, this guy's my friend, or that guy's my friend, that's my friend. Everybody's my friend. Di na lang kung mo-appeal.
Yeah, can be tricky.
Yeah, so that's a difficult decision. Yeah. But we're still some time. We'll see where the ball lands.
Okay. We just came from a worldwide pandemic, and now we're back on our feet. How did you cope during those difficult times in recent years?
We standardized procedures. We just lived up in the mountains, so I guess it's a much better location to be in because less exposure, and we would schedule when to go buy the things that you need. I mean, it's
Less
not an
breakouts in the mountains?
Not really, except my dad, after we were fully vaccinated, became confident, and so he started traveling all over. I mean, he was a busybody. He couldn't stay home. He would get up as early as 3 a.m. to drive all the way to Maya. Well, he had a driver, and then he would go visit our island and make sure that the work's being done, and then come home in the evening. That's a 6-hour commute to get there. 6 hours there, going there, and 6 hours coming back. So
12 hours.
So he would go to fiestas, and that's where we believe he ended up catching COVID. And the vaccine had no effect on them. When we tested their blood, there were 0 antibodies for the vaccine. And I was exposed to him because I'd be in front of him every day. I was more like the operating officer, so he'd assign me all the things that needed to be accomplished, and then I would handle it. But I didn't catch it, and this was the Delta variant. So I remember it was a Sunday, we had lunch, and then I went home. I just lived next door. And then my mom called me up and said, can you bring some test kits? I brought test kits. I tested my dad. I said, oops, he's positive, but you're vaccinated. You should be okay. And I tested mom and said, you're fine. How do you feel? Mom said, I feel fine. I tested myself, negative. I tested my fiance. She was negative. I tested everybody else. 1 or 2 were positive, but not as bright red as my dad. So my dad was the one who caught it first. Probably, we suspect a fiesta. There was a fiesta he went to. And he passed away 8 days after. I mean, it was quite virulent.
In spite of the vaccine.
In spite of the vaccine, he had
penetrated.
Zero antibodies. I had myself tested. I had the antibodies. Maybe that's why I didn't catch it. And I was with him every day. And mom was fine. And then she was feeling a little feverish and said, you better go to the hospital also. So she was there, and then it became full-blown, and then she started to recover. But because dad passed, I mean, they were married for 60 plus years.
Maybe the emotional factor.
Yeah, the emotional factor. She kind of gave up. She didn't want to leave my dad. So after recovering, other complications stepped in. And I think, her heart and her kidneys and...
Plus the age factor, perhaps.
Well,
did they have comorbidities?
Yeah, they both had comorbidities, but it was more of my dad passing that affected her.
Okay. What about regarding construction in Cebu? Any new projects we aren't aware of? Perhaps bridges or... Well, we have CC Lex, but maybe some new thing.
I've heard of a
that's in
project. I believe they've agreed on getting their funding, and there's a proponent. It's a foreign group, so they have to come up with a PPP agreement of a highway from Negros to Santander, and then to Cebu City, then cut across to Bohol, and then from Bohol to Leyte. So that's been in talk for many, many years. I mean, Dad was mentioning that as well when he was still governor of Cebu. I think they're going to begin with the causeway first from Carcar to Cebu City. That way you have a secondary highway that people can start using. So I don't know what the update on that status. I think the complication there is they have to get all the government approvals. So it becomes a PPP project. But I know the funding's in place. It's being funded, I think, by the Netherlands. And I think the proponent are Norwegians who have the technology to be able to build that bridge. So that's ongoing. Yeah.
Speaking of your dad, what was your relationship like with him? Were you alike? Was he like a mentor?
As far as personality is concerned, I'm more like my mom. My brother and my dad have similar personalities, and that's why they'd be arguing all the time. But as far as relationship was concerned, Dad and I had a very formal. It's a formal relationship. It wasn't really, there was not much affection going on. But we'd be discussing everything. We're both logical people, so I guess in the process of the way he thinks, not just business, it would be anything. It would be science. Have you heard this? Have you heard that? And yeah, Dad, I was the one who told you. My background is science. My degree's in science. So he'd be excited when I would visit him because he wanted me to research this and find out this or that or solve. And I made it a personal goal never to approach him with a problem unless I had options for solutions, because he didn't like being given problems, because everybody went to him and gave him, here's the problem, here's the problem. He was just, that's the way running a business is. So I always came to him, okay, this is the situation, here are the solutions. So he'd get excited because he knew that there would be answers. Then I always left the decision to him because he was the type of person who, I don't know if you say egocentric. That means he knew everything, and so he had to make decision, even though I knew which decision he had to make. So sometimes I would pad the options so that I know that he would have to pick this. He said, well, if you do it this way, it's going to be like this, and if you do it this way, this will cost more, and this one actually is more efficient. what do you think? So he'll pick this, which is what I wanted to do. That's why I padded it.
Okay.
So a lot of politics going on there, different kind of politics.
Given you're from a big family, how do you handle these
Well,
conflicts?
we're not a big family, and we don't get involved. I mean, I remember when my dad had only one brother and one sister,
Okay.
and so with the first cousins, we weren't really that active. Although we had one, the eldest first cousin of my dad, should be the one to organize parties and get-togethers, and so there's a lot of family conflict as well. And there was a time when my dad and his brother were not talking, and dad says, I never fought him. I'm never gonna answer him, because he's my older brother. I'm not gonna say anything. So dili na matawag og away because it takes two if you're fighting. So if I don't answer, then it's not really a fight. And eventually they got back together, which was nice that they became friends again before they left this earth. And their sister would be the referee. And my dad was so worried that me and my siblings would also end up fighting when he passed away. But I'm more like my mom, so I was very diplomatic, and I solved all the issues early on, so everybody's happy.
Okay. Okay. On a lighter note, what are some of your pastime hobbies, books, or interests, movies, or sports,
Wow.
or diet? Any special diet?
Oh, I love to cook. So, yeah, diet. I do intermittent fasting. So, I only eat a certain number of hours per day.
16/8, is that the one? Or
No,
longer
it's
hours?
worse. It's more like 24.
Oh, 20 fast and 4
20
the
fast,
eating
yeah.
window.
So my eating window is like from 6 to 10. And so, I already plan my meal ahead of time, what I'm gonna cook. And so I have two refs and a huge pantry and a center counter stove, and the whole wall is full of all the tools, knives and pans and ingredients and all that. So I enjoy cooking. Well, that's why we ended up opening a restaurant, But I said, just keep the menu simple, and let's pick a couple of dishes that we can formalize as far as preparation is concerned, so it remains consistent no matter what. So that's now. I mean, some people don't realize I'm a senior citizen, so I've been through quite a lot.
I didn't realize you were senior. I thought you
So
were younger.
exactly. So that's why sometimes I line up in the grocery store and they stare at me, and like, for seniors, I said, yeah, I know. To show them my Oscar.
Okay.
So I've been through a lot. I mean, early on in life, my dad was a farmer. So every weekend, I mean, I studied Sacred Heart here in Cebu. It used to be in Mango Avenue. So every weekend we'd go
I'm a
to our
hearter.
farm. So the Ateneo one or the original? You're
The
probably
old one
Ateneo.
in
The old one?
General Maxilong.
Did you still reach that?
I was
okay.
the last batch.
Last batch. Okay, so and
the old one.
I used to go to our farm all the time, and that's where I learned to speak Cebuano or Bisaya, because I, hang out with all the kids, run around the sugarcane fields, and end up, full of dapao. And then, as we were growing, he found some properties by a beach in Sogod and opened one of the first resorts there. It was called Club Pacific, and this German guy brought the first windsurfer. So we're talking about what year was that? 77, 78. So I started windsurfing. So that was one of my big sports. Other than, in school, it was basketball and all that. And I got involved heavily in scouting. So when I was in university, I studied abroad. I took up ice skating and snow skiing. So I on weekends during winter, I'd wake up at 4 a.m., drive up to the mountains, ski all day, and then drive down in the evening, half asleep. So I drink a lot of coffee. I took up flying. I was 20, and I decided I was still in school. I was working also at the same time. So I got my pilot's license. After that, I moved back to Cebu in 98 to 91. So I was based in Manila from 91 to 98. Moved back to Cebu. And since I gave up on the aviation, I switched into cars. So started it's more of the engine itself, understanding the theory. My bachelor's degree is in physics, so understanding the details of how engines performed and how to enhance the performance, and yet keep it within certain limits to keep the car streetable, so you could drive it every day. It wasn't something that you just brought to a racetrack, you know. And so that's fun, and that's still my hobby until now. I actually have 2 projects that I'm doing, but street cars, not race cars.
What about golf? You play some
I
golf?
tried golf when I was in Manila. Played for about a year because I got a hole in one. I said, stopped. No, it took too much time. You know, it's I do have spare time, but my spare time is usually just an hour, and then I have to do something, and then you know, so it's like now I have spare time now, and then later on I have things to do. You know, and then tomorrow I have my schedule, and then you know, office time, and then you have a break. So I can't really take a whole afternoon off. Although my son does it all the time.
What about travels? Have you been going abroad lately with the family, vacations?
Travel.
And how's fatherhood, by the way? Like the family, parenting?
Yeah, that's a long story. Like I said, I'm actually a grandfather, so
Okay.
I have one grandchild. They're in Germany now visiting their in-laws. They're arriving on Thursday, so they'll be back on Thursday. I'm building a house for them next to my house. So I have my eldest is the one. She's female, so she's gonna be. I'm building her house. Then my second is a boy whose house just completed. He's moved in already. My other 2 are in the U.S. One works in Las Vegas, the other in Boston. So you know, try to implement whatever I could. I didn't follow any of the traditional methods. I only followed, you know, what I could, and used logic basically to talk to my children, and understood. So I never had any issue with any of my children. I mean, I knew, you know, kids will always be kids, and teenagers will always be teenagers. And so I told them, look, you guys go drink, no problem. If you guys get drunk, just call me up. I'll pick you up. Just don't drive. That's my only rule. Don't drive when you're drunk. You know, you can have a driver, or you call me, and all. So it's happened a few times that they were all drunk. I'd have to pick them up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then please don't tell my parents. You know, his friends. You know, I'd drive them home. We had to carry one of them, as long as they were safe. So, so people don't believe that I was really a cook in KFC. What's the secret formula? They don't tell you the formula. They just give you the batter, and you make you just batter the chicken and you cook it. I can tell you the process.
Okay.
We were very close with my classmates, and until today we have a group chat, and we have now, last year we had a reunion in Las Vegas, so we all went to Las Vegas. Next year our reunion's going to be in Vietnam. So we've stayed in touch, and even those that were missing we eventually found, and so now we're pretty complete in the group chat, you know. So I went to the university, and I said, I want to apply for college. And they said, well, you're supposed to start applying a year before, not 3 months before, you know. And I said, oh, so what do I do now? I said, well, what's your major? I said, physics. Oh, it's open. It's wide open. No problem. You can apply now. And then they look at my transcripts, and they said, but you only have 10 years of school. You need 2 more years of high school. I said, but I graduated. We only have 10 years in the Philippines. We don't have 12 years like they do in the US. Then I said, and I took the SATs, and they looked at the SATs. Okay, you can start. So I started. They said, you can start with the summer course. So I started with the summer, and that's it. So I did 4 years of that. Then my dad said, you won't be able to, there's not much work for a physicist. So I went straight, which was a mistake. I should have kept working, because I was working for a bank already at the time. I should have worked for a few years before getting my master's in business. But I went ahead, got my master's.
So physics first, then business.
Yeah, in business.
But why physics? You just had a knack for it?
I just had a knack for the math.
You're a numbers
and the
guy.
logic. Yeah, I'm more of a numbers guy, and Dad says also accounting is going to be a piece of cake for you. My God, I almost failed accounting, and they're saying why? I mean, he says your mathematics
Yeah.
is so advanced. And I said, well, it's not math. It's like the teacher would say P&L. Check the P&L, and in my head, P&L is power times torque, not profit and loss.
So some of the terms.
It was the terminology.
Terms
And that's why I said gaining
confusing.
experience, you understand what they're talking about. Of course, the funny thing is, I ended up working in the finance sector. I was working for a bank for 3 years, wholesale lending and real estate projects. And then I was pirated by a business valuation company where you do basic financial analysis and you develop a valuation for that particular business. It's not asset valuation, but business valuation is a going concern. So by the end of 3-4 years, I could actually teach the class, and I actually did teach. I did a lecture in the Graduate School of Ateneo on business valuation. So my weakness became my strength. So
how long did you teach?
And that was like one course, one weekend course or something. I taught in UC. I volunteered for one semester in their MBA program, entrepreneurship. So it just took up too much of my time. That's why I didn't pursue it. But I really enjoyed it. That's why I have my radio show now. But the radio show is any topic. So I really enjoy trying to find a solution or a way to explain a particular topic such that everybody can understand in Cebuano. Right? So, like when I did the entrepreneurship class, they gave me the curriculum, and then I talked to the dean, and I said, I don't want to follow your curriculum because your curriculum is basically a standardized model that won't really teach proper entrepreneurship, because most entrepreneurs are people who don't follow a formal process. They have certain skill sets that are different from standard business models.
Discarte.
Yeah. So exactly, that's the word. So I said, what I want to follow is the way we do things in Wharton, because I'm a Wharton Fellow, which is a postgraduate program, and it's basically like case study. So the first day of class, I asked all the students. I said, you're all MBA students. I want you to tell me about yourselves, because this is a class for entrepreneurs. And an entrepreneur is somebody who creates opportunity, not takes advantage of opportunity. We create it. So tell me about yourself. And everybody would tell their name, their age, where they work, and all that. I said, okay, that's great. That's statistics. That's not who you are. Tell me what you're passionate about. So they start talking about, oh, I love to cook, or I love to do this. I said, okay, that's your passion. Now, let's take your passion, because if you have something you love to do, so sometimes people ask me, like, what do you do for a living? And I have to stop and think. I'm like, it's kind of hard to answer. Formally, I'm like, president of this company and all that. But I'm like, I don't work because I'm passionate about what I do, so it's fun. Right? So I said, so if you pick something you're passionate about, it's not going to be work.
Yeah. It won't feel like work.
You enjoy it. I'm enjoying it. We earn so much money to be able to spend that money in something we like to do. So if you make money in what you like to do, then why do you have to work? You're already making money. Passion. So that's what I was trying to instill in the students. Okay, let's pick something. So developing or creating an opportunity. So each of them came up with a business concept. Then we discuss the business concept. Then we expand on the business concept. Then we go into all the different areas: marketing, finance, organization, step by step, so that they understood the process of starting a company. Kind of like the experiment I did with mentoring a real business. I followed the entrepreneurship model to be able to help somebody do a business and be successful in that business. I tried to do it too with some members of our community, but they didn't seem to be too eager. Parang lisod, they had a hard time.
So no passion.
They didn't have a passion. The reaction is always, we had some employees too that we wanted to promote. They didn't want to be promoted because they don't want the responsibility and they don't want to have to think. They just want something where they just. So I guess there are people like that, and the challenge now is how to be able to encourage people and get them excited about what they're doing. And that's what I enjoy. It's that I enjoy mentoring. So now I'm doing it for my own company as well, and then trying to do it for the community through the radio program, and maybe I'll have some group programs for individuals in a community to be able to help them succeed.
Okay, so very diverse.
Yeah, very diverse.
Very colorful life. I've been so
travel, like you said, travel.
Yeah.
I had stopped to think because I was like, on Cathay Pacific alone, I had like 2 million miles, and then on, you add all the airlines, I probably have enough miles to go to the moon and back. 50 times.
Yeah.
Been all over Europe, been pretty much all over Asia, except what are the countries?
Any
I went to Cambodia.
favorite destination all time, or your
Japan.
top 5?
Japan. Yeah, I really enjoyed Japan. In fact, I was there how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4 times last year, or 3 times last year. I'm probably gonna go again next month, and probably again in the winter. So, but all different places in Japan. Europe. Well, I enjoyed China in the early years, when China was not as developed.
But
when
it's
I
cleaner
started
now, right? Because China used to have
Yeah,
this.
I mean, I was walking
like,
around
Chinamen
Beijing.
spitting all over the toilets. Have that.
I was walking
perception.
around Beijing and it started raining and I got brown spots. That's how dirty the.
Yeah.
But the one I enjoyed was I went to this town called Jilin in Jilin province. Yanchi, I think is the name of the town. It was in between Vladivostok and North Korea, so they even had Korean words in there, and it was very interesting. It was still undeveloped, and so we were news. So they had a news crew following us around because first time foreigners were visiting. This was 1999 or 2000, somewhere early, very early, when China was just starting, and they would serve us, bugs and the food, and I'm Asian, I'll eat anything, so why problema?
Okay. Looking back in your life and career, what are some of the ultimate highlights? Because you mentioned you have a passion for cooking, setting up a restaurant, in entrepreneurship. It's so diverse. What's
happening now is more of, like I said, it's more of passion. So I do things because I'm passionate about it, and I don't consider it work. When I was actually working, I started out with KFC. That was my first job. This young 17-year-old, work in the kitchen, throw the garbage, clean the toilet. So been there, done that. Know what's the process. Then I was a driver for Hertz Rent-A-Car. Then I was a tutor, and that's when I realized I enjoyed teaching, because I was tutoring high school kids, math, mostly math and science, because I was a physics major. Then from there, I went to a bank, worked for United Savings Bank for 3 years. Then I did business valuations.
The bank
before
was
I moved.
here?
No, this is still the U.S.
Okay,
Because I was still getting my master's degree.
What part in the U.S.? What state?
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Bay Area. Actually, I lived in Pacifica, a town called Pacific, but I worked in the city itself, in San Francisco. And then I moved. My valuation company was San Carlos, which is past San Mateo, close to Stanford already, that area. Moving back here, tried to do a couple of startups with some friends of mine, and then we took our company public. We did an IPO in 1995, so I was one of the youngest CEOs. It was an interesting experience. I wouldn't take another company public again. It's too much. Although I was thinking about it, it's too many restrictions. Because it's public. You have to report everything you do, and so that was the highlight of my formal professional career, CEO of a public company. Then after that, it was all moved back, started family business, and did some incubation tried to do some. We came up with online currency. This was before the Bitcoin and everything else. We're talking about 1990s, and out of Singapore, and the Singapore government stepped in and says you cannot do a currency outside of our currency. So they banned us from going. We would have been the first cryptocurrency. Well, it wasn't crypto yet then, but it was computer generated. I had the first ISPs, one of the first ISPs here in Cebu, Cebuano Online. Again, early 90s. I had one of the earliest internet cafes, 90s, also early 90s, which market died. It just wasn't timed right. I also I reserved Asian Yellow Pages. This was again in the 90s, which could have been something like Alibaba if we didn't say the market was not ready. People were not yet into internet, and our internet then was dial-up, and you're happy with 2K. 2K. Wow, 2K!
Yeah.
Enough to get my email out. So
I
I guess it was
remember.
too early. Too early. So now I'm just focusing on fundamentals, businesses that I know. That's why even in the restaurant business, I said you pick a product that will never go out of style. Barbecue beef, barbecue pork, barbecue chicken. They will never go out of style, especially here in the Philippines. And rice. Always buy the best rice. And then, Skyline Gardens. I mean, we all die, so you're all going to need some place to be buried.
Yeah, true.
Because people are superstitious about that. I'm not.
Yeah, good vision. Yeah. What about regarding the generational changes? Because now we live in a very fast-paced world. TikTok, Facebook, everything's online. We live very differently now. Grab,
I don't.
Lazada. What can you say about the times then and now?
When things change in front of you and you're part of the changes, you don't notice it. So I consider myself up to date, so I don't notice. Whereas a lot of people my age, and I know a lot of them, my friends, and
left behind.
They're so left behind. They don't know. They have no email. They don't know how to, go on the internet. I mean, they'll ask me questions. I'm like, just Google it. What do you mean? I said, just Google it. I said, but it's all fake. I said, well, you have to know how to discern what's fake and what's not. And so, I've tried to stay up to date with all the latest apps. I'm even experimenting on some of the new technologies. That's because I've always been technology based. Physics, we designed computers from scratch, where we had to build diodes, we had to build resistors, and then make gates, and then make chips, and then this, and then until your final exam was building a hexadecimal computer. So I understand the whole process, and from that, you just keep growing and growing and growing as far as the technology is concerned. So I understand the basics. I may not be able to store enough knowledge to be able to do programming now. I mean, I still know the old programming languages, but I update because this is too much. You have to specialize, and you need to focus. And I don't have the time to put everything. So, but I stay updated. I tend to watch a lot of documentaries. I mean, the moment I get home after whatever meetings I have or work we have to do or discussions, and I watch documentaries. I like watching technology documentaries, look at historical documentaries, nature documentaries. Nature kind of shows us how humans are. My dad used to always say that if you want to know, what's behind politics and all that, look at the lions, and that's how humans are. They just use their intellect to explain what they're doing, but they're just like the animals. They act just like the animals.
The instincts,
instinct,
control.
Intellect, and higher self.
Yeah.
Or the way in psychology they call it the id, the ego, and the superego.
Anything you'd like to impart to whoever might be watching this? Maybe people struggling with some uncertainty, or whoever might be watching this in the future down the road.
I guess certain guidelines that I would recommend people, or certain points that they can refer to. Number one is always believe in yourself. And that's the biggest problem we have here is people don't have self-confidence. And the only difference between people who have self-confidence and people who don't is people who have self-confidence have had the experience. So they say, like, I'm not worried because I know I'll find a way because I've been there and I've done that. So it's experience. So I try to encourage people, don't feel doubt, find a way. So when they say, can you give us advice, like 2 or 3 things? Because if I give you a 1-hour lecture, you'll probably remember only 2 or 3 things. So might as well just focus on 2 or 3 things. Number 1 is 10% brilliance and 90% execution. And I saw my dad, such a workaholic, is get it done now. Get out of bed, go out there, do it. When I wanted to learn to fly, I was working, I was earning enough. I looked at how much, it was only $15 an hour to fly. And I said, well, every week I can earn enough to pay for 2 hours of flight time. So I went to the airport, signed up, and flew. And that's how I got my license, because I went and did it. And, there are things here too, even in the construction, make decisions right away. It's better to make a bad decision than no decision. So I see them working and it's all wrong. Okay, everybody stop. Nobody works here. Change this, get it done. Action, you have to take action. So brilliance is only 10%. I'm in many, many meetings and everybody has fantastic ideas. I say, okay, who's going to do it? So you have all these ideas. You see somebody achieve something, they build this building, you say, ako man ang idea. Yeah, but you didn't execute. Yeah. So that's why I'll say, if you look at unsag hinungdan sa mga problema sa Pilipinas, it's not corruption. Corruption is one of the reasons or one of the causes. But the biggest problem we have here is lack of execution. Yeah. Lack of execution.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because, like, my brother was with his contractor. He told his contractor, if you can finish in 6 months, I'll give you 30% more. Mura nag-SOP. But that's a legal, private offer, or I'll pay you 30% more if you finish earlier, you execute. Because it's more valuable to me if it's finished, because then I can use it. Whereas delay. And sometimes I have the discussion too with my staff. They'll say, oh, it's so expensive. It's, it's 20% more. Yeah, but if we order it, it's going to take a month. Get it. So we have it now. So we do it. So I'm sure they're learning too. Even if it costs a little more, it's not the cost. It's the execution. So, just, what's it? Nike pa, just do it.
Yeah, I think we need go-getters with strong personalities that assert.
Yeah, so that's one advice. But the other one was what you mentioned earlier, which is determine your goal in life. What's your goal in life? And don't be vague about it. Don't make it like, oh, I just want to live comfortable. Because live comfortable changes. What do you mean by live comfortable? Oh, to be able to buy food and to buy a house. Okay, then when you have your house and food, I want this car, then you want this car, then you want that car, and it'll keep changing, Yeah. And then at the end, you have your jets, you have your helicopters, and all. And samok, you have so many problems at the end. Just get me a hybrid. That's fine. I don't need a Mercedes or.
Sometimes more to manage, it gets more responsibilities, more headaches.
So it's more headaches, and do you want to deal with that stress? Whereas you have a problem-free vehicle that runs fine and all that. You don't worry about it. So you're so frustrated because this is why. What's wrong? What's the worst thing that can happen? You have to stop and think. We have to learn to let go a lot of times, and that's very difficult because it goes against our nature. Ay na lang. Oh, somebody said this about you. I don't have a problem. My dad used to say, he said, the only person I have to face is myself in the mirror every day. And then he says, until I get too old, I look at the mirror and say, who are you? He didn't reach there yet. But he used to joke about that all the time.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of learnings. Parting message or a last final message before we wrap up. I think we covered on a lot of ground,
a
lot of insights. So
we can always expand on things. I'm thinking of doing programs to push more of these ideas to help people. One is believe in yourself, because I think everybody is capable of doing it to some level, and education, college degree teaches you how to think. Yeah, I know so many people who always say, I never use what I learned in college, or I'm not working in the job of my degree. I'm not working in physics except in my hobbies. But so college teaches you how to think. It's about how to think, but thinking is only 10%. Execution is 90%. So discarte is very important. And don't look down on our country and our people, because kaya ginato. It's just getting the right push, the right mentor, the right leadership, and execution. Just do it. Just do it.
Okay, Sir Mimo, thank you so much for...
Don't call me sir, I'm not a knight. Mimo lang.
Yeah, Mimo, thank you so much for the very insightful talk. I
But
got a
it's
lot from you today.
Too random and too broken out.
Yeah.
I guess we can pick a topic. It's easier if we pick a topic, and then I can always...
Yeah. Okay.
There's a class. There's a class I lecture on, and I always do it free, and sometimes the schools charge. It's called How to Think Outside the Box. So I formalize the process. What's a box? What's inside the box? And then think outside the box. We can do that some other time.
Yeah, we can expand on focus topics perhaps.